Children of God, thanks be to God. You know, this passage of all the New Testament, without talking about any hot button issue, there's some passages in Scripture that instantly start fights or instantly start arguments because it's got some power to it. When you talk about the story of Mary and Martha, people hate this passage. And it doesn't even have any hot topics in it. It's just people get so, Minnesotans in particular. And it's, more so than I would compare this story to what's going to come later in the Gospel of Luke, the prodigal son. Right? You can compare it to that because there's two siblings, and the prodigal shows up, and he wasted everything, and it's about mercy and compassion. And while many of us have still identified with the older brother in that story, in this one, oh my gosh, really? The one that's sitting on the floor? I told my wife I was preaching on this passage, and she did not miss a beat. She goes, oh, sure. The one sitting at Jesus' feet got the right decision. What's going to happen when everyone's hungry? You can hate this passage. You can be, okay, so hate's a strong word. We're from Minnesota. I'm uncomfortable with this story for a couple of reasons. One, the sense that we get that Jesus is saying that the contemplative life, sitting at the feet of Jesus, Bible study, is far superior to that of work, the active ministry of doing things. You can be upset with it like that. You can be upset because there's not so subtle sexist undertones here. There's the woman in the kitchen and she's nagging Jesus. That can get under a lot of people's skin, and rightly. And then there's also the reason why you might be uncomfortable with this passage. Anybody with a sibling who's been told, you should be more like your older sister. Yeah. On the list of things Jesus said I should do, I'm going to put that near the bottom. I'm going to be like my sibling. So there's a lot to get uncomfortable about in this story. But I have been reading a couple of other understandings of this passage. This is interesting because of layers, both of character names. Mary and Martha, those two names appear not just in Luke's gospel, but in John's gospel. They're the sisters of Lazarus. And there's some Christians who, well-intentioned, tried to make these the same family. At the same token, there's good reason. There's power in telling this story in a slightly different way than the way the Christian, some popular Christianity has painted this portrait for you. I put it to you, since Lazarus is not named, if this is just Mary and Martha, and it's not Mary and Martha, who are sisters of Lazarus in John, are said to be living in Bethany. This is in a town that is not named. So there's reason to think that this might be another set of sisters. Martha welcomes Jesus and his disciples into her home. Let me say that again. Martha welcomes Jesus into her home. This is first century Palestine. About a patriarchal culture as you're getting, and she's a homeowner. All right. So she's there, and there's the introduction of her, who is it's her house. It says, and there's also her sister, who would sit at Jesus' feet. Now, I saw one sermon. I read a sermon on this, and it kind of took it off that there's some Greek mistranslation that is endemic and problematic, and all the understandings before this one sermon has gotten it wrong. Now, I'm not going to say that never happens, but I'm always a little hesitant when someone makes an outlandish claim like that. So one of my best friends reads biblical Greek, and I asked him about this because the way it is said, the way the Greek makes it sound, it should read, it could be read, Martha had a sister, Mary, and they would sit at Jesus' feet. As if both, like this was an activity that they were both participating in. Like it was more of a mantra, a state of being. It's what you did as a family. I don't know. When I asked my friend who's about this, and he said, it's there, but it's to claim that that's the understanding is a bit much. I put it to you because it gives way to a whole different way you picture this story. When you picture this story, you picture Jesus sitting, and you picture Mary at the feet, right? Jesus is sitting in a chair like this, and Mary's just hanging on every word. He's saying something like the Lord's Prayer that's just blowing her mind. And Martha's in the back like scrubbing pots and getting the food ready. There's a reason my mom isn't in any pictures of me growing up. Because she was cooking. Right? The line is sitting at Jesus' feet. And if they both perform it, it is also a subtle reminder that sitting at a person's feet is a turn of phrase, not a literal description. If I were to say, if I say, let's after service, let's go chew the fat. There's a few of you who understand what that kind of phrase means. You know I'm not cutting off a piece of fat and chewing on it. You know that we're relating to one another. I have a elementary at best understanding of music. If I want Jerry to give me a few pointers, I'm going to sit at his feet. Not for very long. No, but he's got great feet. He's got good shoes. But what it means is I'm trying to learn from him as best I can. One turn of phrase that I know for sure was used is a blessing that you would give to someone following a rabbi would be, may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi. I like that. The idea being you are following so close behind them that the dust that they're kicking up when they walk lands on you. So that the prayer being, may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi, is that you follow them so closely. I like this, because if it is this saying, it can change how you picture this story going. You see, just a few verses before this, Jesus had sent out the disciples. He had sent out the 70. There was this mass exit. He gave them a mission, and he sent them out 2 by 2 and just said, go to the countryside to start healing and start casting out demons, start telling people about what I'm saying. If following in the feet of Jesus, if sitting at the feet of Jesus is more of a turn of phrase, maybe Mary isn't even in the room. If Mary isn't even in the room, then Martha's protest, hear Martha's protest again. Jesus, aren't you worried? Doesn't it make you mad or concerned that she left me here alone? That's actually the phrasing she uses. That she has to hold down the fort by herself. This isn't about just whether it's the understanding of the meal, maybe it's a concern for her sister, that her sister is gone. She doesn't want her sister out in the mission field, but in the home where she can see her. when it talks about Martha, she is greatly troubled with diakonia. Some of these things, so this word choice from the gospel writer is profound. Greatly troubled. This is stirred, overturned, flipped over. And diakonia is the word of ministry. When you are at a council meeting, you're doing diakonia. When you're delivering food to the poor, that's diakonia. When you are gathering together to help plan worship, that's diakonia. When you've made coffee before worship service, that's diakonia. When you're getting the garbage figured out for the church, that's diakonia. When you're setting up that meeting with a sick and shut-in person, that's diakonia. When you send an email to the office admin announcing this thing that we're doing, that's diakonia. You see the kind of widespread, this isn't her just doing the dishes. This is the unthanked work of the life of the church. Has that ever been something you have participated in? The unthanked work of the life of the church. She is greatly troubled with the unthanked work of the life of the church. So Jesus responds, Martha, Martha. You get the dual. And there's a couple of ways to hear that. One, Jesus is followed by so many people. Some of the people that Jesus follows are his critics. Some people that follow him are the people who need him to heal him. Some people who follow him are his disciples who are never getting it right. This is one of those instances where I feel like this is one of Jesus' friends. He's just like, Martha. Like, you're getting over that Brady Bunch, Martha, Martha, Martha. Like, or it's Marcia. You're right, it's Marcia. My bad. I didn't grow up with it. Age me. But it's compassion. It's a sense of familiarity, calling the person out by their name twice. That's one way to read it. The other is calling you into the now. Right? Where there's some folks, without a doubt, no matter how good I preach a sermon, there's some folks who are wondering, what's for lunch? There's some folks who are like, did I leave something? Did the garage door close when I left the? So calling the name twice is calling you into this moment, to being fully present to what's about to be said. Jesus says, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. The word choice there, worried and distracted, it's diabolique, diabolic. Now, I don't know if I believe in a literal devil, but I will say that it is pretty biblically sound that division within oneself, the scattering and separating of a person, leads to destruction. And she is so divided, so separated out, that it's causing her to freeze from what she is doing. Jesus says that there is a good portion. Mary has chosen the better portion, the good portion. This isn't the work that she is doing. This is how she approaches it, which is just about everything we do in ministry. Everything we do for Jesus. Everything you're trying to do in your life. The big question is not what are you doing, but the why. The heart in which you are doing it. And this is actually where how you tell the story kind of comes together in a single moment. Whether you see Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus and holding to the one true thing of turning her heart and her attention towards Jesus, or if she's not there and she's off doing great big missionary work, like casting out demons and teaching, and Martha is at home. Jesus is saying the heart of what you bring to one moment is what matters. Unum necessarium, the one necessary thing. scratch the surface of the things that give you meaning in life, if I were to scratch it, see what's under the surface, just hiding under it, do I find there a unity within you? It's pretty easy when it comes to jobs, right? If you felt like all your life you were called to this job that you were performing, for some folks, you've inherited it. The number of people who went into their job because their parents, they felt like they had to make their parents proud. The number of people who, your job, you made a lot of money. Great. What will you do with that money? You become a parent. You want to talk about being divided? Try being a parent. My first year, which, is only amplified since, but my first year in a parent, there was like how I thought my dad wanted me to be a dad, the way the books thought I should be a dad, the way that like TV has taught me that being a dad. Like, how am I supposed to be a dad? I've never done this before. And the division within yourself can cause kind of a freezing. Go with the easiest route. For a job, man, the first job I ever thought I was supposed to do, I thought I was supposed to be an actor. When I was a kid, I wanted to be on stage. And so I tried for it a lot. Thankfully, I was surrounded by an enormous amount of talent. So I never got on stage. Never got the delusion that I was going to make it. But so the reason I bring that up is when I became a pastor, I thought this was just a new acting job. I could play the part. I've known some really good pastors. If I preached like Peter, if I prayed like Paul. Some of you know the song. But that's not who I was supposed to be, right? The way I'm singing my song, the way I'm preaching the word that God gave me, that's the way I tell that Christ died for all. It's going to sound, look, and feel different than Pastor Peter. So how? This is a unifying message across traditions, finding your real why and finding a purpose to it. In the 17th century, there was a rabbi, Rabbi Susa. Rabbi Susa said, "When I get to heaven and I stand before God in the heavenly courts, God will not ask me why I was not Moses. God will ask me why I was not Susa. God will not ask you why you are not Moses. God will ask you why you are not Susa." Well, Gloria, Jerry. What is it that God has called you to in this moment, in this time? If I were to scratch the surface, you feel called to social justice, to change this world. Is it simply out of trauma? Is it out of anger towards a political candidate or party? Or is it that deep compulsion, the unum necessarium that Jesus lays out here, the heart that Mary really does show, whether she's sitting at his feet or following him on the mountainside preaching the word? Where is the source of the energy of your life? Is it divided amongst all the things? Or have you found that one? Whatever your purpose, whatever God has called you to, we need you. To all you Marthas, and I know this, in every church I've served, the number of Marthas out there who have done countless hours of unthanked ministry, who have wondered where their sister, their brother, where the minister was, where the other staff folks were. because they are down in getting their hands dirty. They have blocked off the time in their schedule. They showed up. And no one seems to notice. You have chosen the good portion if you come at it from the love that God has for you. That you know the source of energy, light, and life in this world. And that is what has brought you to your work. To the Marys among us who just can't wait to get out of this building to start sharing with each other and with the world the light and life of God, we need you too. You have chosen the good portion. As long as you're coming at it sitting at the feet of Jesus. Because make no mistake, you can, if you're sitting at the feet of Jesus, literally, like you just sit in the building of the church with no heart towards the outer world, folks, there's a lot of dividedness that can go into that. Are you in your job that you hate and it's killing you, but you're afraid to quit because you don't know if you could find another job? Are you in a marriage or a relationship? Are you with your partner, spouse, because you're scared to be alone? You're out there. You're putting yourself out there, but, oh man. It's quite a walk in front of us, dear friends. There are perils on either side. What portion will you pick? What portion has called on you? Whoever you are, wherever you are, we need you to have chosen this good portion. And finally, and this is where I'll close, not just for individuals, but for churches. I've known many a church that says, you know what we're good at? You know what we're good at? We're good at educating young people. I mean, we set up a school, so we're doing that great. We have to set up a school. That is what we need. We need a school. We need a Sunday school. We need Wednesday night education programs. When there are great education programs offered by community resources everywhere. But we need this. The books, church growth books tell us this is what we need to be doing to be successful. Okay. Why do you need to be successful? And by what measures is success? We need new young people in our church. I don't disagree, but why? Why do we need new young people? The number of churches that want young people in their seats to pay the bills of the church. I literally had to correct someone. Somebody very well-meaning referred to people coming to church as meats in the seats. I know. The time I've had to correct denominational leaders and refer to people, I'm like, these are children of God, not giving units. What is the purpose of the church if I scratch the surface of Spirit of Hope? What drives the leaders of the church? What drives the routine members? What drives the radical disciples of Jesus Christ who call Spirit of Hope home? What drives you here and into this particular ministry of this church? I'm not going to ask you why you're not Moses. I'm not going to ask you why you're not Church of the Resurrection down in Leawood, Kansas. I'm not going to ask you why you weren't some other church, some other place. God's going to ask Spirit of Hope. Be Spirit of Hope. What does that mean? I'm in my first 4 weeks. If this is your first time here, this is my 5th sermon here. I know about as many, if this is your first Sunday here, you might know as many people here as I do. So I'm looking forward to learning and to being a part of what God is doing here. And as I scratch the surface, what I've come to understand, what I bring, what I'm passionate about, is at the core of the ministry of Jesus Christ in this church hear God's story, share our stories. And between those two, we're going to find the divine life. Not just today, but for tomorrow. We're going to hear about how it was. And that's compelling. That's compelling for young people. That's compelling for older people. To actually hear the stories of the children of God and God in the world. And we're going to do so with a soundtrack, with a beat. Mary's, Martha's, women, men, everything, every child of God. Find that good portion. Sit at the feet of Jesus wherever you go. And no matter what comes your way, may you be at peace with it. Amen.